Y'all, can I tell you about these Tecovas boots? I don't know if y'all know this, but these boots are handmade, high quality, stylish, and comfortable right out of the box. I know we buy everything online these days, but boots are something you really should get fitted for. And it just so happens Tecovas is based right here in Austin. So come shop with me at the Tecovas store on South Congress or the Domain. That's TECOVAS.com. Don't go gently, y'all. Welcome to the first episode of CityCast Austin, brought to you by our exclusive launch partner, Tecovas. I'm your host, Nikki Devon, and I am so thrilled to be here. Now, before I took this job, I was working at City Hall as Constituent Services Director. What that means is I heard a lot from the people as the liaison between the council member and Austinites. I heard your concerns, fears, gripes, triumphs, opinions, definitely heard your suggestions. Now, every day I worked with folks to help make Austin a better place. And I also worked closely with the mayor. At CityCast Austin, I'm still working on making Austin a better place, but these days, I'm just a constituent like you. And he is up for re-election in November. So let's dig into what he's done for Austin so far and where we are headed. It's Tuesday, June 11th. I'm Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. Okay, so really quickly, I have been calling you Mr. Mayor for 2 years, and I tried very, very hard to try to call you Mayor Watson for this interview, and it just did stick.
Just don't call me an SOB and we'll be all right.
I am here with Mayor Kirk Watson. I am so excited. Thank you so much for being here.
That's my pleasure. Thank you.
You are the first person I wanted to interview.
Well, that's neat.
Now, this is your third term as mayor, is that right? Okay, so the first term of mayor was in the late 1990s, early 2000s. As a senator, you were representing Austin a very different way. I have to ask you, which role do you prefer, mayor or senator?
They're so different that it's hard to make comparison other than the people part of it, right? Other than the people part and trying to come up with ways that you help the people. So I really have loved both.
Yeah.
I probably could argue that it's better to be mayor because you have a more immediate impact. You know, you can do something that really touches people that are so close to you in the representation almost immediately. And no matter how good a bill you might pass, you're going to be somewhat reliant upon a state agency to carry out that bill and make sure that you want them to carry it out the way you want to see it carried out. But I got to tell you, I loved being in the Senate. I didn't leave the Senate because I was unhappy.
Okay, so the first term of mayor was in the late 1990s, early 2000s. The way I remember it, downtown was pretty dead back then.
It was.
And, you know, now here we are, 2nd Street District, City Hall is downtown. Did you envision this back then?
Yeah, that's a great question and one I'm real proud of. So where we're sitting right now in City Hall, and on either side, you've got Silicon Labs, and directly behind us, you have ACL, and you've got the W Hotel, and you've got people living, and you got all this retail. This was dead. And in fact, this was a retrofitted old lumber company. The land had been bought in 1974 by the city with the idea that they would build a city hall here.
They bought it in 1974.
Yeah, and built what they called temporary council chambers. And when I was elected in 97, we were still meeting in the temporary council chambers.
Wow.
Only in Austin, Texas would that be called temporary after all that time. And I said, no, we're going to figure out a way to do it. And as part of that, what we wanted to do was create the 2nd Street Retail District. And the way we envisioned that was as kind of an open mall, which is kind of what you got, right?
Right.
Before I had gotten into office, they had the Downtown Austin Alliance had brought in a group, and they said if you want to really build your downtown, you need a couple of things. One, they said, was you needed a city hall. Another was we needed to double the size of the convention center. A third was that you needed more residential in downtown. And They also mentioned you needed a performing arts center. So we had experts that had told us what you need to do if you want to create a downtown and if you envision a downtown. And what I'm proud of is that I was able to lead to get those things done. The private sector didn't believe that we could pull it off. And frankly, I don't think believed that government was serious about helping with it. There were only about 3 places you could live in downtown at the time: the Brown Building, the Rail Yard Apartments, the Regency, and the Brown Building had Lucy Johnson not bought that and had the vision not to tear it down, I'm not sure you would have had it as housing.
So now you're here and it's years later, and you know for sure you had your hand in the building of this. I'm curious if there's anything that has changed about Austin, about this growth, about this area that you don't like.
Well, I wouldn't come at it that way. I think I would come at it, are there things that we can improve on, right? That I will tell you that when I'm downtown on a Wednesday night, much less a weekend night, and I see the number of people that are on the street and the life of this downtown, it feels pretty good. I think there's some things we need to do in downtown that I look forward to trying to instigate that update some things. Congress Avenue, for example, hadn't really been updated in a long time.
I will agree with you on that.
So I think some facelifts, if you will, maybe that's because when I look at myself in the mirror, I think, those eyes could use some work.
Hey,
maybe Congress could use a little work.
I'm a fan of facelifts, so I'm going to say that I'm with you on that.
But I love the fact that it's as lively as it is. And I love the fact that people live down here. You go to a downtown neighborhood association meeting, the passion.
To that point, right now, there are a lot of things that are happening at once in this city. Our unhoused population is definitely a big hot button issue. So what would you say are your 3 biggest challenges Austin is facing as a city?
Well, I would say number 1 is affordability and housing affordability. I think that's clearly number 1. I think City Hall was way too slow and inefficient in addressing what I consider to be a housing affordability emergency. Mm-hmm. And I'm really proud that this council has worked together as a good team to move us forward. And we, even in the last 2-3 weeks, have landed a pretty big airplane that relates to how housing will be dealt with in this community over the longer term. And there's a lot to be proud of. We're getting results and we're moving faster. So affordability is kind of my first priority. The second thing, and this is not in any real order, but you asked me for 3, the city was broken when I first came in as mayor as it applies to how we addressed people living homeless. Austin had divided itself basically into a two-party system. And I don't mean Democrat and Republican. I mean permanent supportive housing and nothing else. And we still see vestiges of that. There's still a hangover from that. We need to deal with the entire continuum. It's shocking to me how single-minded some people, including people that got themselves elected to office, were about it has to be this way and no other way. And it wasn't working. The truth of the matter is that approach was rebuked by the people of this city when they voted to reinstate the camping ban, and it was rebuked by the state capitol when it mandated doing that. So on permanent supportive housing, I believe you're going to see almost a doubling of permanent supportive housing in Austin this year. And then next year, the number of units that will come online will be even more than this year, and the year after that, even more than next year. So we're going to provide that permanent supportive housing. But why would we not be creating more shelter beds as well? And we know people living homeless want that because they're showing up at places like the marshalling yard, which we've created in the past 16 months. That's about 300 beds. When the Salvation Army announced to me 3 weeks after I was mayor that they were going to close the downtown shelter, it was like, oh, wow, that's another 150 people going to be on the street and we don't have emergency beds for. Well, as you know, the city did the right thing, purchased that facility and have converted it and into what we now call the 8th Street Shelter. I was able to make an agreement with the state of Texas to get nonprofits in Austin $65 million. About $5 million of that will go to preventative type of activity to prevent people from becoming homeless. And then the others will be for non-congregate shelter.
These are the types of ways that we're moving towards permanent supportive housing.
If I walk up to somebody that's sleeping on the corner of 6th and Brazos in downtown, and I say, I really care about you, just give me 3 years and I'll get you a place to live. That makes no sense to me at all in 100-degree heat or in the brutal cold.
So we have affordable housing, our unhoused population. What do you think is another challenge?
Transportation.
Transportation.
Yeah, transportation.
That's so funny. I thought you were going to say public safety. I was so sure.
No,
transportation,
I would say public safety is in my, is there too. But I put transportation, and that's one of the reasons you have seen me pay such attention to defending the voter-approved Project Connect. We've kind of gone full circle because I don't believe we can have an affordable city unless we do better with regard to public transit and transportation. I think that ends up, frankly, being the hub. You can build housing that you call affordable. You can build housing that adds to the supply so it impacts the affordability curve, if you will. Mm-hmm. But unless we do better when it comes to the ability to get around this town without somebody having to spend $10,000 a year on cars, we're not going to fully meet what we need to do to be an attainable or affordable city.
I remember right when you came back, you brought Jesus Garza in for interim city manager. Why do you think you caught so much heat for bringing him in? And I'm asking from a place of a person that just genuinely didn't understand.
I'm not sure I completely understood either, but because I thought, why does not everybody love me all the time? I think part of it was because it disrupted kind of the power structure.
Okay.
And that always gets you a little bit of heat. Not to mention the fact that there is little question that we were moving at a faster pace.
Yeah.
And one that I think the council has appreciated, and City Hall, as a general rule, if allowed to its own devices, will move too slowly and inefficiently, and we have real needs to meet. So bringing in a pro like Jesus Garza, and for those that don't know what happened, after about 6 weeks, it was decided that the then city manager needed to find other work. And what the council said was, we're going to take our time to find the next permanent city manager, because what we want to do is we want to turn over a more stable city hall. And so part of what Jesus Garza was asked to do was make that kind of change.
Yeah.
And we've now hired T.C. Broadnax, and I'm real proud of the process that was used. I'm real pleased that we have him. I think he's going to be a great city manager, bring a lot of stability. But we did turn over to him a much more stable city government.
So Austin has 400,000 more residents than it did when you were first mayor. So how have you noticed that this city has changed?
First of all, the change. One of the biggest changes is that I was mayor from 97 to 2001. And then I was elected in 2006 to the Senate. But 97 to 2001, Austin was becoming a big city. Mm-hmm. I got here in 1981. Liz and I moved here in 81 for 1 year. And we thought we'd end up back in North Texas where we both grew up. We made fun of people because they would come up and they'd say, "Where are you from?" And we'd tell them, they'd say, "Oh, you'll never want to leave Austin. You'll never." And we kind of like, "What?" Well, sure enough,
it's true.
Very soon we didn't want to leave. We've got a fountain of youth in Austin that every year new students show up at HT, new students show up at St. Ed's, Concordia, ACC, and that little public school we've got up there. But what that means is every year you've got new diversity, you've got new culture, you've got new music, you've got new ideas, and that brings about change. And then what happens is they say, "I don't want to leave." And the good news is most of our big challenges are a result of success, and we need to address that success. Austin is a big city.
It is a very big city.
It's a big city. And when I was mayor the first time, that was when we created the first resource center for the homeless. That was when we created the first ever affordable housing trust fund. And we created the smart housing program, which is still used today.
I am in the smart housing program.
There you go. So we could see that we're going to become a big city. The issues that we face today now are big city issues. And in some instances, we're playing catch up.
Right.
And that's unfortunate because that's always harder than anticipating and moving forward. I also think that one of the big differences is that when I was mayor the first time, you had a 7-member council. You had the mayor and 6 members all elected at large. Now you have a mayor is the only at-large position, the only one that represents the entire city at once, and you have 10 council members all elected from single-member districts. And I will tell you, there's a real benefit. It makes a difference in the equity of the city, and I think done right makes for better government. And then, of course, when you have this many more people, as you pointed out, there's just a big difference in what end up being issues that are harder to address. I was the mayor that got put on the ballot the first time we ever got to vote on light rail. And it failed. And it failed by less than 2,000 votes. Can you imagine how different this city would be today and how much cheaper it would have been had we done that then? So that plays to what I was saying about, and all we've done is grow, and all we've done is get more clogged roads. So wouldn't that have been helpful? And so now we have to face it in kind of a different way.
Right. I remember the light rail. I remember voting for it because I remember being like, oh man, that'd be so cool. We'd have trains. That'd be amazing. But I also remember back then we didn't want to grow. I feel like Austin really wanted to keep the small town kind of weird, which is, listen, close to my heart, but also, a little naive because now here we are.
The truth of the matter is that the no growth approach, all that does is put you behind.
Right.
If you're a place that is as successful as Austin is and is growing. People want to be here.
So you were recently at David Chapel's 100th anniversary. Yeah. That is my family's church.
I love that church.
I love that church. As soon as you stood up and started talking to Reverend Parker, all I see is a sea of faces, eyes wide. Until that day, I didn't realize how much people love you. Like my aunt was like, you need to introduce me to the mayor. It's like watching you in that moment, watching the way people respond to you. That's nice. It's your relationship with the community. You seem approachable. You seem like someone that someone can walk right up to and be like, hey, I know you're the mayor, Mr. Mayor, blah, blah, and you'll have a conversation. Have you always had this style in your leadership? Have you always been this person?
Well, thank you very much for that. That's a touching question. I don't think I'm any different today than I was when I hit Austin, right? I love that contact. So I don't think I've changed, or I wouldn't continue doing it, right?
Right.
And I never ran for anything until I ran for mayor. But I was always involved with people-oriented things and doing some form of public service. If I've changed, I hope it's that I'm doing a better job of embracing others, because that's what I enjoy kind of the most out of all this.
Do you think that your relationships with people like Reverend Parker help keep you accountable?
So when you have strong friendships and relationships, it's easier, if you will, to take that advice, even when it's negative advice, and shift and move. We bring all of our unique experiences and how we were raised to the table. Joe Parker, we met when we were both in law school competing against each other in a mock trial competition, and became friends in the round that we were competing against each other. So, and here we are all these years later, and I find myself mayor of this big, diverse city with lots of different kinds of needs. My life experience is not the same as everybody's. And so there may be times when I see something happen, I'm thinking, why is somebody upset about that? Until I pause, or somebody that's a friend points out, well, here's why you're not you just don't get it. Well, I'm okay with being told I don't get it in some instances because of those relationships and
Right.
friendships.
How are you about to spend your break? Your June break? It's short.
It is short, and what you're referring to is the fact that the council's not meeting during the month of June. And so I'm up to my eyeballs in catching up. I'm up to my eyeballs in meeting with people that, I couldn't meet. And I'm trying to spend some family time. It's unbelievable how perfect somebody can be. But I've got 2 perfect grandbabies.
That is such a granddad thing to say. Well, okay, I need to know their names.
Well, the 6-year-old is Effie, and the 3-year-old is Birdie. So getting time with Effie and the bird is real important during this break.
What do they call you?
They call me Pop, and Liz is Lolly, so we're Lollipop.
Oh my God. I cannot handle how perfect and Southern that is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Isn't it though?
So I found out that you wanted a motorcycle for years and years and years and years, and your wife said no. I come from a motorcycle family. My dad rode a Honda Goldwing. Yeah. He used to drive us to school in the 80s with my sister on the front and me on the back, totally illegally.
Yeah.
And so I'm
my kind of guy. That's the way to do it.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by the fact that you kept asking.
I'd ridden a little bit, like in high school.
Okay.
I had a hand-me-down Honda 50. I'd enjoyed it so much. So for years, I asked about it, and for years, I lost the argument. And then one day, I won the argument, and I don't know how I won it. There's probably a big old life insurance policy I don't know about, but that's okay. As long as I win an argument, I'll go with it. So I took the course, and then I bought a Shadow because I wanted to see whether I was going to like it.
Right.
I had this idea that I was going to like it, but I wanted to make sure I liked it, and frankly, wasn't scared to death. And I was scared to death, but I still liked it for some reason. And so I then bought a Harley-Davidson Heritage Softail Classic. And
that is a beautiful bike.
That's probably the amount of money I've used to trick that thing out is kind of nuts.
Worth every penny.
Yeah, absolutely. I started riding, basically cross country. I've been to Sturgis on my own 5 times.
What?
And to New Mexico and Colorado and places like that.
My parents used to take us on family trips.
I love that.
My dad, he was a part of a Black motorcycle club. All of the motorcycles would ride forward, and all the wives and the kids would caravan in the back.
And
we would go to different motorcycle rallies, New Mexico.
Yeah. No, I've been to a whole lot of rallies.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I've got a cut that I'm so proud of. Yeah, and for those that don't know what a cut is, it's the leather vest.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife makes fun of it because she says I'm a frustrated Boy Scout and I need all these patches. So I've got pins, and then I've got ROT Rally, the Republic of Texas Rally here in Austin. They were nice enough to let me ride in the front of the parade many times, like I was a big dog.
Listen.
So I've got some of that stuff. I've got the Sturgis patches. And then on the back, I've put the patches related to national parks.
And what are your favorite places to cruise around Austin?
The hill country, of course, is always great. The Willow City Loop and, go down to Uvalde and all those kinds of things. But also you can go east, Bastrop County, and then on down to, Fayette County, and all that is really wonderful. When I was in the Senate, every legislative session, I would host a motorcycle ride. And it would be for
What?
members of the legislature that rode, but also people that worked at state agencies and things like that. And we went everywhere around Central Texas.
Great. Thank you so much
No,
for
this has
meeting
been
with
fun. I
me
appreciate
today.
it.
I really
This has been
appreciate
great.
it. I knew I wanted to interview you. When I talked to your team, I said I really want the opportunity just for a second to get people to see the version of you that I saw when
That's
I
neat.
worked here. Thank you so
Call
much.
me anytime. This is fun.
There are so many other things I wanted to talk about: policing and public safety, environmental concerns that go along with growth, where he goes for his favorite margarita, but we ran out of time. We're hoping to have him on again real soon, though. That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.